this country owes veterans, war veterans especially, they owe them a lot, because those people have given their souls to defend their country. And a piece of that soul never comes back.
Kamal and Pamela, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I am really excited to speak with you guys about your project, Almost Home. This one actually stuck out to me because my mom was in the military for 30 years. You guys are currently screening at the Tasvir Film Festival, and you've also been selected for other Oscar qualifying film festivals. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you guys tell me a little bit more about that and how you're feeling?
Very excited. Obviously this is a project that's close and dear to my heart, and certainly Pamela's as well. But just to have it out and be recognised at an Oscar qualifying film festival, to be out there winning some awards, not just regular festivals, also military-based film festivals, getting nominated for things like faith-based festivals, and so it's a variety of festivals that it's a very exciting time to be able to when you have anytime you make a short that is well recognized, especially my first one, to be honest.
I feel the same. As a veteran, I actually met Kamal through this project, and I knew the director, and I knew that this story, like upon reading it, needed to be told, and I really like to work on things that need to be told and stretch people's minds, and that's why it was kind of a labor of love, you know, for me. So, and as an Air Force veteran, and both my parents were Air Force veterans, um, I understand what people go through. My brother-in-law, he was a veteran of Marines in Vietnam for 6 years. So PTSD is definitely real. They never really come back the same.
I want to dive a little bit more into the heart of the story. Almost Home explores the experience of the Muslim American Marine dealing with PTSD and then also community prejudice. What inspired you, Kamal, to write this story, and why did you choose now?
Yeah, I mean, choosing now, I can answer that first. I mean, I started writing, I should say, during COVID, so it's taken me a while. But I think, especially with the current climate, it's relevant and it's adapted since then. Because as we know, the media and how it portrays Muslims isn't quite in the brand that we would like, especially in America. And coming from the UK, I've seen, it's mainly a sort of a negative tone. And so I wanted to create a spin on it with a positive tone because there are a lot of Muslim Americans in the Marines and fought since 1812 for America. And we wanted to portray that. We wanted to tell that story. But also in the light of how do you tell the story without actually being sort of a documentary or sort of educating people, if you like? Or how can you tell, sort of say, I don't know, the average person in Nebraska trying to switch on to an NFL game may want to switch over to watch something that maybe they would say, oh, okay, I was in the Marines too. Maybe I'm a vet. Maybe, I'll switch over to it. Oh, by the way, I didn't know that there are Muslims in the military. I mean, it's surprising. Actually, I had people after the festival come up to me and say, I didn't know Muslims were serving in the military. I'm like, well, people of all faiths do, whether they practice their religion or not, doesn't matter really. But yes, guess what? They do. And in fact, they're very patriotic about it. And there's also the fact that this guy's practicing. So he actually goes and you see a full prayer that he does right at the end, so it's at the time to show that as well. So what if they turn to faith rather than just drugs and alcohol? Maybe they're trying to find peace within themselves. So it's that, and then obviously there was an incident with, as I mentioned before, that personal to me. My dad was in the military for a bit. I had friends who had been sort of turned away from even their coming to the US, who were just regular sort of just had Muslim names, and I wanted to tell the story about how that sort of I think the confusion around what there is about being a Muslim person who happens to be practicing and being just as patriotic to the country. So there's lots of different layers, and obviously the mental health piece of it, how that sort of affects people.
Pamela, as a veteran yourself, what drew you to this project as a producer?
I feel like this is a story that has depth, that has all these different sub stories, if you will. It has his religion. It has PTSD of dealing with, the horrors of war and coming home, and it has something. It seems like for everyone, right? And to put someone in those kinds of shoes, like Marines that maybe, like Kamal said, don't realize that Muslims serve, they're going to see this and relate to the PTSD part and then see, oh, and he's a Muslim. Maybe it'll give them some empathy and have something. I just want to open people's eyes that we're all the same, you know, and I'm I'm very I really want to tell stories that get everyone to realize we're all the same. Um, so that's my main goal. And I wanted it told as a veteran. I wanted it told as realistic as possible. We pulled a lot of favors and had some, great special effects and everything that were free, that gave it to me because I told them this is a short and it's about PTSD and it's about the military, and they're like, okay, whatever you want. So that's really important to me.
It's great to see that you guys are building this community too within the project that you've done. Kamal, this is your first time writing and being a lead actor. Can you walk us through the transition from actor and performer to writer, and then also doing it at the same time?
That's a good question. But first of all, I do want to call out what Pamela's saying. This project would not be possible without Pamela. She's been a former vet, being able to pull the strings that she actually was able to do being a veteran. And I think it's critical to emphasize that, because I'm so glad that Pamela's speaking about this, because to get the locations for the budget and to get real Marines on a project would actually not be possible at all without Pamela. So that's why I mean, like, I think it's so important, that sort of cohesiveness. Like you said, it doesn't matter where you're from, but to have support, somebody who's a former vet, means a ton. Um, but to come back to the being a writer and actor, one of the things that I was talking to Menhaj about this on another call was, you know, it's I've obviously, when you're just acting, you just have to be in the moment as a character. And the good news was that I was able to, having written it, to be able to be, absorb it, no matter, walk it, for a couple of years. You don't normally, as an actor, you go in on set, you're told sometimes the night before, this is what you have to do, and you basically go in and you show up on set and you get to get into character. But, you're trained to do that, but at the same time, that opportunity I had allowed me to sort of, let it marinate a little bit. That said, and then Pamela knows this, things have to change on the fly. The location changes on the fly. I'm dealing with things like, we need to change this line. Can I throw you a line? And I'm like, well, okay, fine. Or no, can we adjust it this way? So when you're writing it, you're producing it, and you're also dealing with the budget, obviously, as a producer, you're sort of like wearing all these different hats, and then you have to get back into character. So thank God I wasn't directing it. I had Menhaj, who I trusted with the direction, because I think that would be overwhelming for me doing this for the first time. But that said, I really enjoyed it, because creating something from the start, from on your own, and then be able to kind of see the final product, especially the hard work that we all put into it. I think that's something that I've got the bug for it now. I don't know if I do it all again like that, but I'll tell you, I've got a lot of learnings. I'm not saying that I would want to do that way, but I'd say that basically it's definitely something that I'd learned a lot from. Yeah.
Well, Kamal, I want to take another step further with that. What would you say would be the most challenging wearing those hats?
Yeah, so my point of view, I mean, it's challenging because when you're a writer, producer, and an actor, it's really making sure that you really focused on the moment and try to get into character, because that was the most important thing. I wanted to be as authentic and genuine to the character, right, to the role, especially having written it. But it is obviously challenging because you're thinking about the other actors, what their priorities are, the budget and the location and so forth. So I think that that's the part where it's good to have a good team around you to support you. But you have to kind of take the noise away from just the signals. So that's kind of what I had to focus in on. But like I said to you, Marin, I had time to live with the character a little bit so that I could adjust it and be sort of focused on the moment. It's definitely very hard. There was moments where basically, well, I mean, we had kids on set, right? We had somebody who was looking for permits every minute, and so you've got to deal with that sort of stuff, the legal side of things, which you can't, ignore. So there were challenges. We thought we might have cut a scene, and we might have to change a location, but again, that's part of production. And like I said, I had an amazing team around me and made it all work.
Did you ever have to rewrite during any scenes or on screen or like in the mornings?
Yeah, a little bit. Just tweaks here and there. But yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, sometimes, like I said to you, you have people throwing a line at you, and you're like, well, does it work? Does it relate to something that's happening later? All that kind of good stuff. Right? So, yeah, the tweaks here and there. But we wanted to stay true to the project, which is the main thing, which I think we managed to do.
Pamela, you've been in the industry for 27 years. What made this project different, especially with your experience as a veteran? And then what were the unique challenges that you faced?
For me, I think the challenge was the time, of when we wanted to shoot it. And I came in and was like, ooh, I gotta I've gotta set up my team. Luckily, with 27 years of production experience, I've worked my way up to producing about 10 plus years ago. So I have wonderful connections and people who have worked for me in the past that I said, hey, we're going to do this one free, you know, what's a weekend, you know? And luckily, I mean, I have, they've all been very loyal to me. Production for me is, I could do it in my sleep almost, I know the things we need and the time we need them to get in order to shoot, like on the day. So that was the most challenging part of this, was coming in and going, oh, this is gonna be bigger than a normal short. This is gonna be, this is gonna have action. This is gonna have, this is gonna be something that, if we want to tell this story right, we've got to go big, and stretch as much as we can. And, on shorts, you tend to have people who just want to be a part of it and yet don't know production, or they're very novice in production. So, you're trying to do all this as professionally as possible and then teaching people along the way, you know. And that, that's kind of, what it was like.
Was that something that you incorporated into the timeline beforehand, or was that a game time decision, sort of?
Well, because when I was talking with the director and he said when he wanted to shoot it, it became game time right away in my mind. You usually need some time, to prep and to get the things, get the locations, get the permits, and so, I called on my team and said, we've got to do this like right now, in order to make this happen. And, we did. So that to me was, and trying to teach certain people, and there are cost consequences if someone doesn't realize, how far you have to take a budget and how little money you have. So we had to be, the knowledge of me and my team made it as scrappy as possible so that we could make it as quality as we could, as much quality as we could.
Amir faces a unique intersection of challenges, being a Muslim American, a veteran with PTSD, and then also feeling betrayed by his own community and, in a way, in his own body. Kamal, how did you approach portraying these layered experiences authentically?
It's a great question. Yeah. Um, I think what's relatable is that we all, especially if you are an immigrant or you're traveled and um, I personally, for example, my parents were born in East Africa. That they lived in different places. They were also, they lived in Europe and were here in the US. And I think the fact that we always question what our purpose is and identity in terms of, your faith or your ethnicity, in terms of where you sort of belong. It's always a struggle. And I think that's relatable. But for him specifically, Amir, he's gone to war against, if you like, where generations of his parents were and his family was from, and he's going to war because he believes in being patriotic towards his country. He believes that's where he's born, one of the countries that supported him. So you're going out as and fighting when he feels like he's, and what obviously is a traumatic incident with a young boy, then that can be very traumatizing for any person, regardless, even if you're, but even more so when it actually involves killing. And so I think the layer of being accused of killing Muslims, which is, often, which is his own community saying, well, you just killed our own people, and you're shunned from that community. And then you've got the other layer, which of course there could be bigots who just basically don't even believe you're really a Marine and you're not as patriotic. And he's, being called a terrorist, as he calls out. So he's like, kind of like, hang on a second. That doesn't make sense. I did all these good things, and I did what I was told to do and what I thought was right. So he can only turn to. It's hard to talk about, right? Who do you really discuss it with? And I think that's that layer of it, and then obviously his mental health as a result of it, the PTSD. How's he going to resolve that, and how does he share that? And I think that there's a common theme around that people feel, even if you're not actually in the military, which is like, I'm a person in I went to a mosque, and I and I talked to Marines as well who are Muslims, but I went to a mosque and I talked to somebody who was there, and he was like, he was a priest there, and he said, it's basically what we call undercover Muslims out here, because they don't want to, they might be following the faith, but they don't want to proudly say that they are Muslim because of fear that, they'll be sort of judged. And so, and I thought that's a shame, right? So you can't really talk about your identity saying, well, I'm not really brown or I'm not really this. So you have to hide your identity. It's just kind of like, whereas I've gone to other people of, other faiths who might be very proudly say that they are whatever religion they are. And I said, I thought about it. And I thought, well, is the media really turned against Muslims, which is so untrue when it's a small minority, and why is that happening? So how do we try to do that in a story? And I think that's really a longer answer to your question, but hopefully it sort of explains why there's a lot around, and I'm sure there's other people who felt a similar way. It doesn't have to be Muslim, but not necessarily feeling that struggle within themselves to talk about where they're from, right?
Definitely. I felt a lot of the themes of identity coming up when I watched the film too, and I was just like, I felt so bad. I was like feeling like he was being like attacked from every angle, and he really just had no one to turn to. This film tackles both external prejudice and then internal community dynamics, as we just spoke about. Can you both speak to how you ensured you were representing the Muslim American veteran experience accurately, which Kamal, you just actually kind of hit on that a little bit.
I'll let Pamela answer that actually, if you can.
Well, I feel like I said before, there are several different stories if you want to look at it in different ways. It was tackling the military side, that that was my that was me. I mean, I think that's the thing that caught me that I could give to this story is a true military, experience, right? So that on top of like Kamal knows his religion, you know. We had a stunt coordinator who, again, did it for free. He's one of my guys, and he actually played the man in front, outside the grocery store. So I just want you to know he doesn't feel that way. He's acting, and he's very good at it. But he and his guys didn't take any pay, So that was, again, that was a way to make this done as safely as possible. From the angle of military, I think we took it. I'm really glad you just said that, you felt he was being attacked from all sides, because that's one thing I really wanted to show. I wanted the words that Kamal wrote on paper to have that realistic feeling, so that when the audience is watching, they're feeling that. So I'm really glad you said that you felt that.
Yeah. Well, no, I'll add that what Pamela's saying about the person who's playing the bigot, I also questioned how we'd write that, because at the same time, I didn't want it to be a case of, like, this person just is racist and there's a race people being the victim, if you like, right, because of racism. I wanted to be careful about balancing it out in terms of, what that story really entails is that he's been hit from all sides. That's more the important part of this. But what also, it's interesting, I was at Tasvir, and there is also another story. It's about immigration. And it was funny because there's also a racist guy, or like a guy who's, it's this emigre Americana. I can get shout out for them. And it was funny, the guy who was the filmmaker, he said, look, that guy who played the racist guy is one of my best friends. He has even taken a punch in the eye and broken his bones for me, but he still showed up. He was a stunt coordinator, but he still showed up and did it for free, and he played that racist bigot guy. So, to Pamela's point earlier, there's more in common with us than there are differences, and we just need to be able to recognize that to make things come together.
I just feel like hate is an energy that grows very, very quickly, right? And it's easy for people because they want to suppress, they want to get out emotion about them not feeling good about whatever it is. And most of the time, it's not anything about what they end up being angry about, right? So it's much harder to give out empathy or loving energy out into the world to make people, really think about it. And we're all intelligent. We can get over this, but we have to do it together.
Absolutely. I know you guys talked a little bit about people coming up to you after seeing the film and saying, "Oh, I didn't know Muslim Americans were in the armed forces." What were the reactions that you've received from Muslim veterans and service members who've seen the film?
I'm just going to say some statistics for you. Although Kamal has said, it's definitely documented that there have been Muslims in the military since the War of 1812, right? So almost since we have been a country. But we still have, I think, something like less than 3% of our entire military is Muslim. And that figure is maybe smaller than what it is in reality, but those are the people that are willing to identify when they join that they are this. There are other people that, don't want to identify. So they will say no religion or. So, but it's a very, very small portion of people that, so it's really hard. But I just want to say in this, when they're in a unit, there's unity. When you're in war, you have to know that everybody has your back. We all went through basic training the same way so that we understand what's important. And honestly, when you're trying to defend something or when you're at war, you want to care that everybody in the unit has your back and you have theirs. That's the brotherhood or sisterhood. But that's when, things like that shouldn't, and in my experience, they didn't matter.
The only thing I'd add to that is that, basically, we want more Muslim military members to see it, actually. That is our goal. We haven't got that in place as much. I'd like more of them to see it. There were a lot we interviewed, but I think there's part of what we're doing is a social impact film. So we have a social impact producer, so they can actually get the message out there. So it's not just about, how does this really influence a lot of other people and those that are currently serving too. So I think that's the important thing to also, and that's part of this story is to share more with others is, how do we get the message out there?
Do you feel like going on the film festival run, you've seen the filmmaking community have a big embrace around Almost Home, or have they given you any feedback about that? Just festival to festival, or like producer coming to you guys, filmmaker coming to you guys, people in the industry?
Okay. I'd say yes. I've gotten feedback from vets, from Marines, and it mostly the feedback is the same. It's you really kind of touched upon the PTSD very well. You know, they've all kind of said, they felt like the feelings that we tried to show him feeling, they've been there. And that's the kind of unity and everything. That's kind of the, what I want to say, the feeling that we did it right, right?
Yeah, I think what we want, well, as Pamela mentioned, right, we want to be as authentic as possible. That's why we had the real Marines. We had the made sure that down to every single thing that was in terms of with the gear we've got and so forth was as authentic as possible because that's really important to ensure. But I think the part of it that's also tough is, you know, it's also that people turn to drugs and alcohol. That's one of the things that Pamela mentioned, or Pat was telling us when she's had other Marines watch it. Or they end up killing themselves because they just can't deal with this, right? So there's a lot of suicide, a lot of mental health issues as a result of it. You can watch, we've seen it in many movies. What we haven't seen it is an angle from where the person is trying to practice as a religion. And that is the part that's differentiated in this film is that he finds his faith in the end. He actually does. So there's hope. It's not all gloom and doom, right? It's basically an opportunity to get him to go in and finally find a journey towards that peace he wants to have, and with his family as well, as a family man as well. So all those layers.
Pamela, do you have some emotions that are coming up that you want to talk about?
I was hoping you wouldn't notice that. Yeah, every time I do, I talk about this story or you relive a little bit of, differences that like what I've been through is nothing compared to what some of my friends have been through, you know? So, it just makes, I'm just grateful that we could tell this story, honestly. I could tell you a lot of other stories. I also produced a PSA years ago, to get the word out that, at that time it was 22 veterans every day commit suicide in the United States. So, it is something that, I mean, this country, owes veterans, war veterans especially, they owe them a lot, because those people have given their souls to defend their country, to fight for their country. And so we owe them that, The Veterans Administration has done wonders and it's grown and I use it all the time. But now people are cutting it back. Like, what's that for? Why are they getting that money? You know what? They've given their souls, and a piece of that soul never comes back. I firmly believe that. So it's important for us to tell these stories so that people will understand. And maybe you don't even need to be a vet. Maybe you don't need to be Muslim, but you need to understand what someone gives when they decide to serve their country. And so, yeah.
I love that you said that too, because, a lot of us don't see those sides, those emotions, those feelings. And we talked a lot about the storytelling and the conversations that, Almost Home generates, but what kind of actions do you hope people take from this? Or are there any organizations that people could connect with to help them, whether they're in the armed forces or they're not? How could they support people that they know better?
There are several VA, and veteran organizations. Um, just in, I'd say even the last like maybe 5 to 10 years, there are corporations now that are kind of making it a priority to interview and consider more veterans who have come back for work. The important thing about a veteran is when they've given so much, like they have a personality that of very hard work, of wanting to work, of wanting to give. And so for some, it's myself included, work is a common distraction. It is something that you can focus on and be good at to maybe get some of your self esteem back, to get some of your feeling of worth back, and help them get into a community, get back into their own communities. So that's the thing we really want to, that's what I want to show, and that's what I want people to understand.
What's next for Almost Home for both of you guys?
Yeah, so there's a question that's asked even when I was at Sphere in Seattle. Yes, came back last night. Yeah, we want to make this a feature. I think it deserves it. I think it's a story for the masses. For like I said, I think it's done well and it's won some awards because it's relatable, which is nice. And I think we want to make it a feature. Obviously, you need funding for that and so forth. So we'll continue the journey. It's hard enough to make a short, but it's harder to make a feature. But we've got people behind it who will hopefully support it, and then we just need to kind of go through the motions. I didn't think I could make the short, and I did it. So I feel like we could do more. And I think that things like this, honestly, Alyssa, what you're doing is sort of elevating it out there in the world so the story gets heard. People make films all the time and they don't see the light of day. We want this to be seen for many people, for the veterans out there, for the people suffering from the PTSD, the mental health out there, and those average people who of faith that may just be like, I'm going about my normal way, just as they did post 9/11, and they're being suddenly ostracized for for the sort of minority of people who that really try to focus on the media to try to make put a negative connotation of the brand of being a Muslim. And religion is all about love, and so we talk a lot about hate, and it doesn't matter, where you come from, what your identity is. I mean, somebody asked me the other day, well, how come your wife's Caucasian? I said, does it matter? We don't know what faith is, by the way. Oh, is she Muslim or is she Christian? Is she Jewish? We don't know. We don't know. We leave that to you guys to figure out. The point was that she was supportive towards his journey, and that's all that mattered, really. And it was very deliberate to have somebody who wasn't necessarily also from the exact same background that Armin was from. I remember we had some excellent actresses to portray the role, and we deliberately went in a direction where I think it was to include somebody, like just a regular guy who just happens to have a relationship, and so we let the audience decide for themselves. And yeah, it's a long answer to your questions. So you want to continue kind of staying true to that.
Anything for you, Pamela?
No, I feel like Kamal hit it on the head. It was very important, I thought, to have his wife be of a different, race. It's honestly part of the showing there's a unity in all of us. That not every, like, the separatism of them and us needs to go away, honestly, you know. And there are so many people out there that don't care, like myself. I don't care, what the religion is, what the color is, what the sexual orientation is. If it's a good person, it's a good person. And people need to realize that. They need to remember that.
And I think just, I mean, Pam knows this really well, but I think it's really important. She talked about, having your back. When you were in the military, it's funny actually interviewing a Muslim people who are in the military. They actually felt more. One of the things that they pointed out was that they felt there were more. They had more questions about their identity when they were outside of the military. It actually felt as one when they were in the military. They're like, everyone had my back. I didn't know what religion or faith, or even if they did, it doesn't matter what they were. As long as they were not worshiping the devil or something. I think even that was, it was like what I'm saying is that there was a lot more. Um, everyone had your back, so it was the sense of unity there, is amazing. Um, so that's something that I think we all aspire to have ultimately. But that I think was very interesting to me that they, as a civilian, they didn't feel as secure as they did when they were in the military.
And all through our wars, we've had people of all religions and all ethnic backgrounds and everything in war feeling that same way, you know. In World War II, we had a lot. And then coming back and then, you know, being treated so horribly in our own country. Like, the United States should be ashamed, honestly.
I love that you both wrapped that up so beautifully in a bow, especially talking about how Amir's wife is from a different background, because I think that that's something everybody notices, even if it's subconsciously, even if it's for a second. You notice that, like, oh, that there's a difference there, when actually there is no difference there. They're just in love, and love is just, it's colorless, it's genderless. I really appreciate you guys coming on to talk about the project. I loved seeing the passion. I feel like that is really delivered on the actual the short film itself, and just to hear you guys talk about your experiences with the film and living with the film pre, during, and post production. It's just been absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Alyssa,
you.
for doing this.